got to kick it off with a killer to grab attention. Then you got to take it up a notch.
The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us.
Who are you?
I'm Shiva, the god of death.
Cells. Interlinked.
It's like people only do things because they get paid. And that's just really sad.
Folks, welcome to Debaser, a film podcast. I'm Jared Rusk, and I'm joined by my co-host, Will.
I'm sad. Don't let my laughter fool you.
On this show, we explore both new and familiar movies as we attempt to analyze and interpret them, all in an effort to debase the films and ourselves. Will, you're sad because we just watched Paul Schrader's 2017 film, First Reformed.
Yes, we did.
So, you know my story. I encouraged my son to enlist. It was a family tradition. Like his father, my father, before me. 6 months later, he was dead in Iraq.
He's going to be a soldier in the army of the Lord.
You know what the world will be like in 2050.
He's going to be a soldier.
The bad times, they will begin. Opportunistic diseases, anarchy, martial law. You will live to see this.
He's going to be a soldier in the army of the Lord.
Will God forgive us for what we're doing to his creation?
Well, I think you need to step back, Reverend.
Put on the full armor of God.
It's the earth that hangs in the balance. Somebody has to do something.
I'm just frightened of everything.
So what if this is his plan? What if we just can't see it?
Our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the powers of this dark world.
His soul is marching on.
Which you when did you tell me about this movie? It was
Oh, it was ages ago now. I've had this on the docket for us for a while.
I know you've been so excited because I can understand the reason why. Mm-hmm. And the reason why is because after we watched the first Kick-Ass, because I want to say that we saw Kick-Ass in the theaters with each other, or
oh my god, 10 years ago
we talked about Kick-Ass to each other at a beach something or whatever, and we both kind of like came to the conclusion like, yeah, that movie would have radicalized me into being a vigilante on the street, stopping crime and shit. You know, we both had like a similar thing, right? And ever since then, I feel like you've had this like kinship with me on certain movies, mm-hmm. and I can understand where that mentality would lead you to this film. So I've got a lot of questions for you about this movie, and I don't even know where would you like to start?
Well, I'll give a synopsis first for our listeners.
Yeah, let's do that.
First Reformed is a 2017 film written and directed by Paul Schrader. And a minister leads a small congregation in upstate New York while grappling with mounting despair brought on by tragedy, environmental concerns, and a tormented past. The film stars Ethan Hawke, Amanda Seyfried, or
Seyfried. I think it's Seyfried, yeah.
I always get tripped up on her.
Same here.
Her last name.
Yeah, same here.
And Cedric Kyles, who you may know as Cedric the Entertainer, but
right.
actually is credited as Cedric Kyles, which is his full
it's his legal name.
His full legal name, right? The film follows Reverend Ernst Trawler, who is Ethan Hawke's character, as he leads a very small church in upstate New York, with a congregation of 6 or 7.
There's like 8 people.
Abysmally small.
Yeah, it's itty bitty.
But the church is historic. It's a landmark, and it was also part of the Underground Railroad.
Yeah, it's been around for 250 years.
Yeah, and it's owned by a mega church nearby called Abundant Life.
Yeah.
And Ethan Hawke, we learn, is divorced and had a son that enlisted in the army, much like Ethan Hawke did at his age.
Yeah, he wanted to be a chaplain. It's I guess tradition in his family to be a chaplain.
Right. And
so his son wanted to do it too.
Right. But while his son was enlisted, he went to the Iraq War and died 6 months after
later.
enlisting.
Yeah.
But we learned this in I think the second scene of the movie.
Yeah.
Where Amanda Seyfried comes to Ethan Hawke's character and says, "Hey, would you mind coming and seeing my husband in a couple days? I wanted you to talk with him." And she's like, specifically like, "I need you to talk to him," because he offers some counseling groups that he knows. But she's like, "No, he specifically wants you."
Yeah, he suggests that he goes over to Abundant Life and talks to one of their people instead of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not for her. And
apparently it was specifically they wanted to talk to Reverend Trawler.
Yeah.
So we see Ethan Hawke go to their house, and he speaks to Amanda's husband, Michael, and they get into how Michael and Amanda are having a baby. Amanda is 20 weeks pregnant.
Yeah, 20.
And Michael wants her to have an abortion because, as he tells the Reverend, he doesn't think it's right to bring a child into this world because of environmental collapse, climate change.
Yeah,
you name it.
He phrases it. He puts it into a quantitative scenario. He's like, "Oh, how old will you be in 30 years? You're going to be like 80. I'll be 60, and my kid theoretically will be 33, and that'll be in 2050 when sea levels have risen, scarcity of crops has happened. People are food insecure. There'll be, climate refugees from all across the world, looking for a place to live. Resources will be scarce. So, there will be fights over stuff. It's going to be hell. How do I, in good conscience, bring another human life into this, knowing that when they are an adult, they're going to suffer and possibly not make it out of their 30s because of what the situation will be like,
right?
Which is a very real.
A lot of the facts that Michael starts citing in his information is real. About how sea level rise, by at least 2 feet in the next 30 years, and environmental collapse. All of this being in the next 30 to 50 years, and even some of the environmental activists that he cites or has pictures of on his walls, they're real people too.
Yeah.
And he confronts the Reverend about this and says, like, I just don't think it's right because I would be dooming them. And the Reverend comes back and says, like you can't despair. Like, you never know what the future is going to hold.
It's a possibility,
right? Like, society is always going to change, with every generation. But he's like, there is no point in holding despair. Like, you have to have hope as well. And that's where the courage comes from.
Yeah, he's doing his best to talk him off of the edge, because that's what a pastor or anybody who's in a advisory position is supposed to do. They're supposed to give you hope,
right? Or just try to combat your feelings, or at least assuage your fears.
Yeah,
and I think he does a good job here. And he's Reverend Trawler's monologuing to us because he's writing in a journal that he's keeping for the next 12 months in the film. And, he says that having this back and forth with him was exhilarating. Like, he felt like he was having a real conversation, and he was really being tested here because, he himself clearly struggles with
the
depression
same problems.
And despair. Right.
Yeah.
And, how has he found the courage to move on and continue with his life?
How do you be a beacon of hope when you yourself have become kind of hopeless?
Right.
Because later we find out that, is it in the next scene where we find out that he's like bleeding in his urine and he's not doing too healthily? So
the Reverend and Michael, they clearly have a good conversation. They enjoy each other's company and opinions on this. But they depart and they agree to meet up later and talk some more. And we see the Reverend is having difficulty urinating, and there's blood.
Yeah.
And so we're led to assume that he's having
kidney failure or
stomach cancer or something like that.
Yeah.
And he, we later learned that he is refusing to see a doctor about it because he's kind of pot committed to dying, you know.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole journal thing.
Right. I think he's convinced that he's dying, and so he is.
Oh.
He doesn't care to see a doctor about it because it's just too much work.
Well, you know, men would rather chronicle their inner monologue than go see a doctor.
I think before he can meet up with Michael again to have another talk, Michael's wife Amanda texts him and says, "Hey, can you come over like right now?" And he comes to their house, and Michael's at work. But Amanda walks him to their garage, and she's like, "I found this while looking for something in the garage."
She was looking for batteries.
Right.
Yeah.
And she's like, "I don't want him to know that I found it, but I don't know what to do with it. I wanted to show you." And she pulls out a box, and inside is a suicide vest with explosives attached to it. And they're clearly both very stunned. But Ethan Hawke, Reverend Trawler, says that, like, you know, are you afraid that he'll hurt you? Like,
has he been abusive to you?
Right. And she's like, no, of course not. And so he's like, okay. Does anyone else know about this? No. He's like, okay, I'm going to take this. Maybe it's best that we don't get the police involved.
Yeah.
Let me just take it. I'll get it away from him, and I'll talk to him about this. So he takes it back to his house while he lives in the back of the church. And he, you know, makes a meeting to meet Michael again. Michael changes the location and texts him to meet him at this park. The Reverend goes to the park, and when he gets there, he sees that Michael has killed himself with a shotgun.
Yeah.
And
it's fucking brutal.
Yeah, it's rough.
What was that when I was like, Jared, what the fuck?
Yeah, well,
what the fuck are you making me watch?
Even in their first conversation, you were
that's true, because it was like depressing.
What is this movie?
Well, because like it was like he was saying my own anxieties back to me, you know, and because I've had the thought before, but
yeah,
you know, clearly the thought didn't keep me from you know, being a dad,
right?
Because you do have to have I'm a pretty optimistic person. You do have to have the hope that things can change, things can be better, and all that. So, but yeah, man. So like after that conversation, I was like, Jesus fucking Christ, what are we watching? And then he blows his brains out. I'm like,
yeah,
Jesus fucking Christ, what are we watching, Jared?
You had asked me, the actor that plays Michael, you were like, why isn't he like top billed in this? I don't even think I saw his name in the credits.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to so badly say, like, maybe he's only got one scene.
Yeah, well that's kind of where I kind of my brain went there, because the movie opens with like the old style way of movies where they would like open up with actual credits and stuff, instead of being like, you know, doing a sizzle reel and then the title of the movie would pop up, and then, you know, the movie would keep going and you'd see all the stuff at the end.
Right. Or maybe you get written by, directed by, starring.
And then it goes.
Yeah.
And this one had Ethan Hawke, Amanda Seyfried, and Cedric, I don't remember Kyle's right there, and then everybody else. And yeah, I was like, dude, this guy's he's there. He's delivering an anxious the guy's playing a very he's doing a very good interpretation of an anxious 30-something,
a millennial,
with all of the weight of the world on their shoulders and, you know, anxieties coming out.
It's explained in the film that he is an environmental activist. He's been in prison for protesting, essentially. It's nothing serious. It's just protesting, you know, probably trespassing and such. And that he doesn't have friends because when they find the suicide vest, the Reverend asks Amanda, like, you know,
are there any other activists?
Right. And she's like, no, he has no friends. It's just me.
Yeah.
So you can understand that he is
in a bad spot. He's like self-isolating.
Right.
He's burying himself in his worries and whatnot. And he doesn't have a good window to the real world to center him. And not to say that you know, his concerns aren't real, because they are. It's just you can't fixate like that, man. Cause
exactly. It's hard to see outside of it.
One
when
person
you're not,
cannot fix all the problems of the world.
Right.
You know. So it's unfortunate he kills himself, and that kind of like that, and his funeral, which is fucking badass as shit. His funeral is so fucking cool.
Yeah. So the Reverend goes back to Michael and Amanda's house to comfort Amanda when the police come and tell her, and he finds a letter addressed to him, the Reverend, from Michael,
underneath his laptop, which he knew that the father would go out of his way to hide anything that could incriminate him, because clearly he hid the vest. I think both me and you were talking, and it's clear that he went to go check on his vest, noticed it wasn't there, and knew what happened, and kind of set off the like, okay, well, I'm just going to off myself.
I wonder, it's not explained why, but I think it's shame you know, that they found the vest. Not that I don't think he thought that they were going to turn him in. I think he was just embarrassed that they caught him before he was able to either commit to it or change his mind and put it away.
Makes sense.
But he was clearly depressed, and he maybe wasn't ready to talk to somebody about it. He was too far gone, you know?
Yeah.
But so inside this letter that he left is his last will and testament. And he essentially dictates in there that he wants the Reverend to eulogize him in his funeral, and that he wants the funeral to be held at a toxic waste dump just outside of town.
That's open to anybody who can go. Like it.
Evidently,
you could clearly go fish there, and there are signs there saying don't do that because you might get something that's contaminated.
Yeah,
you know, it's just like an old shipyard where a couple of ships are just hanging out in the harbor or half sunk.
It's a awful scene.
Yeah.
Evidently, it is a real scene because this was a small budget movie.
Yeah.
So they probably just location scouted till they found a really scary looking scene.
And they were like, good to go.
Yep, here we go. There's a bunch of rusted out, boats and buses and on a lake bed. So let's just film this. And he also wants his ashes spread there, to bring attention to the fact that like we are polluting the earth. Like there are things like this in our own backyards that aren't cleaned up or taken care of.
He even had the church choir sing a Neil Young song about protecting Mother Earth, which was fucking cool.
Yeah, I liked how you appreciated that. I'm gonna get you into Neil Young, I think.
I don't know, maybe, but I hope that on at my funeral I could be as much of a badass to have like something crazy playing in the background, to make a statement. That's fucking cool.
And the Reverend does a good job of comforting Amanda, and presumably that might be that. However, in the next scene, the Reverend is at a restaurant with the leader of the Abundant Life megachurch that owns his church,
who he's had talks with in the past, like.
In
between some of these scenes, he has like talks with them, but like nothing serious. It's all about the consecration of the 250th anniversary of
they're
the church
gearing up for this big event at the church, that it's the 250th anniversary. It's going to be a big to-do with a lot of important people there. Well, this seemingly very important man comes to join them at the restaurant, and we learn that he is the CEO of a large energy company, and he comes in and starts talking about the plans for the big celebration, but then he says, no, there's nothing political that's going to be said, right? And Cedric seems taken aback, and he goes, no, of course
they both
not.
are.
Yeah. And he goes, well, good, because I want to bring something to your attention. And he starts pulling out papers that are printouts of a news article about how there was a protest funeral, which is the funeral that we just described. Yeah. Evidently, it was chronicled by a journalist, and the man is quite upset about it. And he starts accusing the Reverend next to him at the restaurant there of, making political statements with the church and associating it with the church that he is,
doing the consecration for,
right, and providing a lot of money to, as we learn later. And the Reverend takes offense to this and looks at him and says, I just have one question for you. Will God forgive us for what we've done to this earth? And he says in the voiceover to the audience, it's the wise man who does not speak. So you realize he gets into it with the CEO, and they have a little bit of back and forth.
Yeah.
And Cedric tries to keep them cool, and basically just says, like, no, listen, the Reverend was not aware that he was making a political statement. He was purely serving someone's last will and testament and their wishes there. Nothing about this will be said at the consecration. It's fine. So they move on. But
you can tell he's been rattled because
he's clearly very rattled.
He's trying to make a point. He's trying to I don't know, ask questions, I guess. And the CEO, the bulk guy, kind of gives him Something I've heard many, many times, like, well, how do you know that this is not God's plan right now for the earth? Have you spoken to him directly? Do you know his plans? Then maybe you should keep quiet.
Something that's said a lot in this film is something along the lines of who can know the mind of God.
Yeah.
And I think it starts with Reverend Trawler saying it to Michael in the beginning.
This is true. Because
Mike, it is
Mike
redirected
asks,
back at him by the CEO.
Yeah, Mike asks, will God forgive us?
Right.
This is where they both points
greatest line in the whole movie. But
yeah, both points of the conversation are echoed throughout the entire,
right.
the entire movie.
Yes, exactly. That there are, their conversation or argument in the beginning between the Reverend and Michael, you essentially see this play out several more times in the movie, just with different characters. It's so good.
It's very good.
But throughout the film, the Reverend starts to realize that he starts Googling the CEO of this company and his company itself.
He's got Mike's laptop.
Right.
And Mike
has a lot of environmental research on it.
Yeah, Mike's got a kill list on there.
Right. And he finds out that, the CEO that just wrung him out to dry at this restaurant is actually one of the top, a CEO of one of the top companies that is polluting the earth.
Yeah, the number 5 company, and it just happens to be
right. It was
Mike's
number 5
backyard.
on a top 10 list that he's reading, and he is scrolling and zooms in on it and realizes that was the man he just met.
Yeah. He also finds out that he's been donating to Abundant Life.
Right. He's a huge donor because his name and the company's name is all over the church.
Yeah.
And I mean, over the course of the film, he decides that he's become radicalized, and he sews Michael's suicide vest onto one of his own combat vests that he has, and he attaches a patch of his son to the front chest pocket, and decides that he is going to kill himself along with a few other people, presumably the CEO of the company.
Probably the mayor, possibly the mayor, the governor,
right,
and
Cedric even from Abundant Life at this consecration ceremony, and in his journal he starts quoting scripture that he feels relates to and justifies
his own his beliefs,
right, what he thinks he's going to do, and he also believes he's dying of
stomach
cancer, some kind of internal organ failure or something. But the people around him keep telling him, like, listen, you need to see the doctor. You need to get these tests done, et cetera,
brother, you look like shit.
and he's not taking care of himself. He is eating poorly, and he is drinking to excess every night. He's drinking so much liquor. There's a very strange scene where he pours a bowl of whiskey and just starts dipping bread into it.
That scene fucking ruled.
But we repeatedly see him just drinking
constantly
liquor and Pepto-Bismol.
Yeah.
And that's not going to help. That's making it worse. Even when he sees the doctor tells him, like,
hey man, you eating regularly?
Yeah,
No.
like, you're just making this worse. Like, just take some tests and we can find out, if this is curable or not,
Yeah, but he's
dead set and not bothering.
But it's actually funny because he had, like I said, he had that conversation with Michael in the beginning about not having despair, having hope, having, how do you say, the human condition is holding the 2 points in your mind at the same time, and him having hope for something better while also knowing that his life is coming to an end and actively like running it into the ground is just an interesting like dichotomy that lives in this man.
Well, I think it's because he sees himself in Michael, especially when his son died. That was probably him at his lowest point. And he was like, he doesn't say this, he doesn't verbalize it, but he was like, I was essentially right where you are. And it probably took him some time to collect himself, and then became a man of the cloth and became a very modest and pious person, because he is extremely, extremely modest.
Yeah, he's got nothing in his room.
Right.
He's got a shit car.
There were so many poignant scenes of his room where you just see his bed, and it's just perfectly made, but there's no adornments, there's no decor. He lives a very simple life, and he doesn't even want to call the plumber for the leaky toilet. He's like, no, I'll look at it myself. I don't want to bother them. So he's a man of few needs and wants, but he is very depressed and despondent. We start to realize too that he is falling for Amanda.
Yeah, do you think really? I don't know, man.
He's clearly enjoys her presence.
Company, yeah, but that's because
Yes.
she's the only presence that's not badgering him to go get himself taken care of, you know.
Well, it's because he hasn't told her anything.
I know, but like their relationship is almost superficial in a way. Like,
oh, you think so?
oh yeah, 100%. Because like, you know, she's spiritual, and I think the reason why she goes to the dumpy shitty church is because of the spirituality. She doesn't want to go to a mega church because those places are kind of I don't know, stuffy.
That doesn't make her less superficial, though, you think?
Well, no. So what I'm getting at is like the only reason why she's around him is you know, her husband killed himself, and this was one of the first people that not only told her about it, but offered to help and offered to help prior to him doing that. And she doesn't really have any support network other than him, and she's going to him because he is a priest, not because of any kind of other feelings. And I feel like he is helping her out of necessity because in a way he might have pushed Mike to off himself because of his own meddling. And she's a pregnant single mother with nobody else, so of course he's gonna do what he can to help her. She's the only thing in this world other than like some of the kids at the youth group that brings him joy because he's able to impart wisdom on them, you know, before dying of whatever at the end of the year. Yeah, I think that personally I was taken aback by the ending of the movie. You know, in the one scene where
we'll get to it.
Yeah, I know. In the one scene where like they do the, what did she call it? The magical circus or whatever.
Okay, I was hoping you'd get to that. I felt like that was a big connection scene there where we realized, you know, maybe their feelings are a little more than just, you know, a confidant, like someone that, you know, is there supporting you in a difficult time. So if you haven't seen the film, you know, Amanda is talking to the Reverend in a time of grief, and she explains that her and Michael used to do something together where they would get extremely close to each other, lay on top of each other, and
kind of like hold hands and mimic each other's movements, and
with as much skin contact as possible.
And also they would like get stoned.
Yeah. But so without getting stoned, she does this with the Reverend. He agrees to do it, you know, of course, you know, to comfort her. And it's, you know, it's
kind of weird.
So they start laying together. It's very intimate.
Yeah.
And but you said this is so uncomfortable, and then they started levitating.
Yeah, they started levitating. Yeah, this was like a really weird surrealist moment, but it was the way that I interpreted it was like, this is the most human contact he's had in a very long time, and it's taking him to first places of joy. You know, he was seeing. Do you want to? Yeah,
I'll quibble with you on that.
Okay.
So we learn later that he had an affair.
Was that
a relationship, not an affair?
Did he have an affair? I thought it was after the his son died. I thought that him and his wife split, and he kind of hooked up with another person at the Abundant Life, but then
an administrator at the Abundant Life Church.
But then like cut it off. I didn't think that they were.
She's, you know, she's clearly still interested in him, but he has ended things.
Yeah, was it an affair?
I don't know. I don't think calling it an affair is correct, but you told me that
he had a fling.
He wouldn't be allowed to be in a relationship with his position, right?
He's a Catholic preacher. Sorry, there's a whole. He's a Catholic. That's his denomination. Is he's Catholic, and Catholic priests cannot have relationships.
So he's specifically Calvinist. Is that any different? Because I know that
I don't know.
Okay. I'm assuming you weren't Calvinist then.
No, it's Catholic.
You were just. But I mean, Calvinism is a sect of Catholicism, because Martin Luther.
Fuck, dude, I have no idea.
I don't even know enough about it, but I know that there is the Lutherans, which split off because of Martin Luther, who had the, you know, he's nailed the thing to the door of the church, and I was like, you need to change all this stuff.
Yeah.
I have like a high school level understanding of this.
Yeah.
I was not raised Catholic, but I know the Calvinists are actually the more, I guess, liberal sect of that where they were like, oh, Martin Luther didn't go far enough. We actually want to change even more stuff about the Catholic Church.
Okay.
So that's what that's the church depicted in this film.
Okay, I gotcha.
So I don't know if he's actually allowed to be in a relationship or be married. You know?
Maybe he's not, but that's my interpretation.
I felt like he wasn't allowing himself, but it also may have been that he wasn't interested in her because
I mean, she was a wasp,
and he's
she was waspy as fuck.
Well, he's pushing her away the entire movie, and and you know she says like, "Do you think what we did was sinful? Like, do you regret it?
You disgust me."
Yeah, he does eventually really push her away by getting really nasty
shit,
with her. It's awful, but he's clearly just trying to be like, "Leave me alone."
Yeah,
like just stop. But he's lashing out. But I think it's different with Amanda Seyfried's character because Seyfried. I'm still going to trip up on this.
Mary.
Thank you. I forgot her name was Mary in the movie.
Very on the nose.
Well, yeah. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
But I think the difference with Mary is he's really interested in her, and he
maybe I don't know. I really didn't feel that until the very end of the movie.
Maybe I think you could argue for her it's purely that he was there in her time of need.
Yeah.
But I think he's clearly interested in her, and he is probably also interested in the fact that, you know, she is bringing a new child into this world, and whereas his was taken from him. I think that's a part of it too.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah. I'll finish the synopsis of the film, the plot though.
Okay. We're getting to
so he's concocted this plan that he is going to blow himself up at the 250th celebration in order to kill the CEO of the energy company. Mm-hmm. And he begs Mary not to attend. He tells her, "You cannot go. You have to promise me you won't go."
Yep.
And so the day of, everyone is arriving to church. It's a big to-do, you know, huge pomp and
they're streaming it to the other church.
Right, it's being live streamed
to the mega
online. You know, has a big audience of important people. And the Reverend is preparing himself, puts on his vest with the explosives, activates the explosives, and then puts on his flock over it, and gets ready to walk out. And then he looks out the window and sees Mary arriving, and she walks inside the pews, and he
loses his fucking
it.
Mind.
You know, he rips off, you know, his cloak and just screams into it. He's very distressed, and so he ultimately deactivates the bombs, takes off his vest and his shirt, and picks up some barbed wire that he has in the closet, and just starts wrapping
it around himself. Yeah,
just starts wrapping it around himself, and
like self-flagellation.
Yes, and he's bleeding profusely.
Yeah,
and then he puts on a giant white smock over it, and so you see the blood, you know, coming through. And he gets ready to walk out, but before he does, he decides to stop, and he takes a glass of whiskey that he has, tosses the whiskey, and pours in some Drano.
Some tasty Drano.
Goes to drink it, I think, to kill himself.
Yeah.
And Mary walks in, and he looks at her and drops the glass on the floor.
And then they start making out.
They run to each other and embrace and start kissing, and the camera swirls around them for
a minute and a half.
Several full rotations.
Yeah, I was very uncomfortable watching that.
And then it cuts to black.
And the credits roll.
And you were astounded, I could
tell.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, that's one way to fucking end it. I was like, that's not how that shit ended. There's no way. I have a weird feeling like he drank the Drano, and that's what he saw before he died.
That's his last image.
That's his last image, yeah.
So there were 2 other endings filmed.
Oh, no shit. Okay.
In one, he walks out and activates the bomb.
Fuck yeah, that's the ending I wanted. God damn it. Can you pull... Jamie, I need you to pull that up. I need to see it right now.
I don't know if it's actually available. I just
damn.
read that Paul wrote them and filmed them, but then cut them out, yeah. The other ending is that he just drinks the Drano and collapses, you know, on his floor and dies.
I would have chose both of those before choosing the one that he went with. Because it's weird. I'm sorry, I didn't get like a romantic vibe between the two.
Well, sometimes you have to let go and let God, okay?
Oh, yeah? Okay. Are you going to start quoting scripture to me?
No.
Please don't.
Absolutely could not. So, how did the 4x3 format hit you? Did you have any thoughts on that?
Didn't even notice it.
Didn't even notice? Okay, I was going to ask if you noticed, but then I was like, no, just ask how he felt about it.
No, Will's a fucking Philistine.
It's okay.
He doesn't know the aspect ratios.
No, I wanted to know if you noticed it and if it
I didn't.
Gave you any... Okay.
What really sucks is I never notice things like that, and I know that some filmmakers use that as a way to tell you like some things are different, especially like It Comes at Night.
Yes.
Remember that? Yeah, and apparently they changed the aspect ratios to kind of clue you into what's
in different
real
scenes.
and what isn't. I had no fucking idea. I had no idea.
It's okay.
You know,
usually it's done with intentionality, especially now. You know, because there were periods where everything was filmed in 4:3, and then everything was done in 16:9, or etc. And then I don't know what IMAX is. It's something wild, like 229 or something. But this entire movie is 4:3.
Yeah,
and it's very purposeful. You know, Paul Schrader says that he did it because he wants more of the human bodies on screen. You know, wants more of the focus on the humans.
Sure.
You know, that are actually, you know, talking to, you know, on screen.
Yeah.
But it also gives a sense, I think, of claustrophobia. You know, it makes us feel very tight and inside the room with the characters. It makes it more intense, I think.
Yeah, sure.
And every shot in this film could be a still life. It's so beautiful, but in a hauntingly dark, you know, like an American Gothic sort of way, where, you know, we just have like I mentioned, the scene of his bed. You know, it's a beautiful image, but it's foreboding at the same time, because it's telling us that he lives a simple but sad life,
a solitary life. Like,
right.
Yeah, there's a overarching feeling of dread,
right,
in the back of your mind every time you look at what's going on screen,
because it tells you this is not a happy place. You know, this is not a place filled with vibrancy and warmth. You know, so Amanda Seyfried was actually pregnant at the time.
Oh, okay.
Paul approached her to be in the movie, and she was like, "This might be an issue," and he goes, "No, actually, it's perfect. I'll write it into the movie."
Oh,
yeah, I was shocked when I read that, because it's such a important part of the plot that she is pregnant.
It literally like jumpstarts the whole fucking thing.
Right.
What did he have written before?
Well, the original catalyst is that he's just sad. Like Michael's character, he's just sad and, you know, wants to be more intentional with his environmental activism. And, you know, presumably when it got written in that he is
worried about
going to be a father, he, you know, he just doesn't think it's right and wants to have an abortion, and, you know, the Reverend has to talk him out of it. But wow, what a great circumstance to be written into the film. You know, it really gave it
an extra layer,
right?
A bit of relatability. Oh, wow, cut that out. Relatability.
It's okay. I was going to say it's very serendipitous, but I didn't trust myself to get it right on the first try. So I got to work on it while you did that. Every conversation in this film is impactful. Characters trade barbs, but in a way that, like, it really stuns. You know, like, it's not just two people discussing and then the scene moves on. No, they're really hitting each other with what they're saying, or they're, you know, oftentimes too, they're echoing sentiments that we've heard previously in the film from different characters, like we mentioned earlier, because Michael and the Reverend's, you know, conversation in the beginning kind of set up every conversation we have throughout the film, because the Reverend ends up taking Michael's stance against everyone else, it seems.
Yeah.
And it's just arguing that, like, listen, we need to be doing more about the environment. This needs to be important. You know, I think God cares about this. And everyone else is telling him, like, who can know the mind of God? Why even worry about these things, sort of?
We could be a force of good, and we are choosing to turn a blind eye.
Right.
Yeah. It's actually interesting that you bring that up. I didn't quite catch that until you said that, because, I mean, you're right. Every conversation felt like it was important. It was like the anti-Tarantino, where he's got like a lot of conversations, but most of those don't have anything to do with the plot.
Right. But it's not just conversational. There's intentionality there. Like, the words that they're saying.
No, they have more impact.
Right.
Yeah.
They're very important and powerful. So, the perfect example, the Reverend is having an argument with Cedric, the leader of the I don't know his character's name.
The last conversation.
No, at the mega church, they're arguing about climate change essentially.
Yeah, isn't that the last conversation they have? Right? Because Cedric's like, you look like shit. Have you been taking care of yourself?
He's telling him to go to the doctor. He tries to talk him out of being at the consecration, but he refuses.
He's like, if you don't think you're up for it, don't worry about it. I got you.
Well, he does. He has no idea that he's planning to blow himself up.
Well, yeah, nobody does.
But so in that conversation, the Reverend is essentially talking about like how, environmental collapse is happening, and that maybe the church has a role in it, and that we need to be doing more. But Cedric's argument is that well, who's to say that this isn't God's plan in the first place?
Yeah.
He's like, do you think God would want to destroy his creation? And Cedric goes, well, he did it once before.
Yeah, for 40 days and 40 nights.
And damn, Will. That's...
Oh, yeah.
Everyone makes good points in this film. It's insane.
No, that's not a good point.
No, I think it is.
No, that's
If you're
not.
arguing from a theological standpoint,
yes, if you're arguing
God
from a
did
theological...
wipe the earth at one point already.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's a fucking shield to wipe your hands from any kind of...
I agree.
Of how you say, responsibility for one's actions.
I agree.
Yeah.
But you can't argue that it's not a good point.
Yeah, if both of them are coming from a theological standpoint, then sure. You got me
and
there.
they are. They're both leaders in a church.
I know, but this shit's so fucking stupid.
Because when it's coming from the CEO and he's saying like, oh, did you speak with God? It's clearly he's being defensive.
Yeah, but the CEO also is able to quote the scripture. Anybody can, honestly. Like, plenty of people have like a psalm fucking picked out.
Oh, yeah.
Ready to
because you can
fire
cherry
off.
pick it to say whatever you need it to say as conveniently as it needs to be.
I just assumed that the CEO is also like a person that goes to church and has things ready to go to defend his points. But honestly, dude, I think that Cedric, I also can't remember his character's name. I'm sorry, that movie made me way too depressed to remember anybody's name. But I want to say that in a way, Cedric's supposed to personify the type of pastor who preaches prosperity gospel.
Yes.
And you can tell because one of his kids in the youth group also...
Oh, we glossed right over the youth group scene.
I mean, it doesn't... It's not an important... Like, it's an important conversation, but it's not important to the plot.
Right.
But you can tell there's a significant difference between what Ethan Hawke's character preaches at his church versus... what is being taught at Abundant Life. Mm-hmm. And it's like the disparity between both characters and both churches and both congregations, it couldn't be like any more than night and day. You've got a guy who's at a rundown church that's been there forever and is only there purely because it's historic, with a person who believes the things that he says and lives in piety. You find out in that conversation with Cedric at the very end that the person that Toller looks up to is a guy who was essentially a monk, like a person who, always tended the garden, and he almost scoffs at that,
Mm-hmm.
But then, you look at the church that he does, he owns, and it's huge. It's got a great sound system. It's got TV so it can stream. It's got a fucking media center that is owned by the Balk guy, the CEO dude,
or was paid for
by him. Yeah, it's got a cafeteria. It's got fucking everything. It even owns the old church that Ethan Hawke is preaching at.
It's the personification of how capitalism has invaded organized religion.
Exactly.
And
to the point where they turn a blind eye to terrible shit that happens on Earth, and they just toss money at it in order to, make the problem go away or seem like they're doing something. I mean, fuck, even Cedric's character suggested to Ethan Hawke that he should go to Nicaragua and build houses and preach the gospel there. Like, feel like you're doing it something meaningful if that's what you need,
because that's what you do with people who are
problems,
or just even becoming, maybe not radicalized isn't the word I'm looking for, but difficult, that are maybe against some of the church's own goals or the goals of their
mainstream church's own goals.
Right.
Yeah.
They can send you off to do mission work and make you feel important there.
Yeah. Wait, and he doesn't realize, like, Cedric doesn't realize that the things that he teaches at his church are rotting the brains of the younger congregation. You know, one girl thinks that God has turned his back on their family because her dad no longer has a job.
Yeah, he got laid off and he can't get another job.
You know,
yeah.
And like I said, the one kid. Yeah, well,
let's set that up. So
yeah, let's talk about that because that scene was fucking great. Because first off, I was like, "Hey, Jared, you ever been to a youth group?" Because this reminds the youth group leader reminds me of every fucking youth group leader I've ever met.
The only youth group interactions I had were I was, dragged along by a friend after a sleepover,
of course,
and they just put in like a weird VHS tape or VeggieTales, and then you went home with later, a couple hours later with the parents.
Oh, that was you. You missed out.
I lucked out, I think. But so bored that you're like falling asleep, and then you're just like, why do we have to get up early for this? Anyway, the youth group scene is the Reverend. Is it Taller or Trawler?
I thought it was Taller.
I think you're right.
Toller.
I'd spelled Trawler.
Oh fuck!
I remember them saying Taller. Anyway,
it doesn't matter.
The Reverend, he is co-leading a youth group with a youth pastor who's only in the scene, but he is the personification of a youth group leader because he's covered in like
tattoos that have faith and something else on it,
and he's got like the glasses, but he looks kind of cool, Yeah,
he's like, hey guys, let's rap about Jesus.
You know who else? Was like outspoken in his time and liked music.
Jesus Christ.
But they're hosting a youth group, and this is where the young girl is talking about how her father got laid off and he can't get a job, and they're very depressed about it. And she's like, I feel like God has turned his back on us. And the Reverend starts saying like, well, it's understandable to feel forgotten and despair in this moment, but like,
it's not even that. He says some people think that piety is equals prosperity. Mm-hmm. He's literally about to teach against the prosperity gospel,
right?
Of the more God gives you, the better, the more pious you are, which is not how shit works,
Yeah.
And I think he was about to go on with the God gives challenges to us all in order to teach us a lesson or something. He's gonna do what I learned whenever I had attended church,
right?
And this fucking brat speaks up and is like,
this other kid in the group,
this fucking little shithead was like, what did he say? He was like,
so he interjects and he starts saying, oh, so it's not right for Christians to prosper.
That's right. Why should we turn
why should we turn the other cheek? He's like, Jesus never turned the other cheek.
Yeah.
Yeah. He just goes off.
Yeah. And he's like clearly Islamophobic and
yes. He starts talking about how we have to be careful not to offend Muslims.
Yeah.
Yeah. He really goes off on a tangent, and we cut to the Reverend clearly being rattled by this and complaining to Cedric about. He's like, well, the kids these days are just so extreme. It's either one thing or the other for them. And like, you should have heard this kid. He just has all these things, and it's like, clearly this is not what the Bible teaches. Why does he have these, opinions on this?
Where the fuck do you think he's getting them?
Well, and Cedric deflects and says that, it's...
kids these days, they're all followers and not leaders.
Right, and he's like, they have,
the internet,
violent video games, the internet, he's like, kids, raising kids these days is crazy, you wouldn't understand. And he goes, no, I did raise a child.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man,
who grew up during fucking 9/11,
and then went to war presumably because of it.
Because you can tell that there's rot at the core of this guy's fucking church, and I really wish we had gotten the ending where he just fucking blew himself up.
But all this is indicative of everything that's staring the Reverend, Ethan Hawke in the face about what is wrong. What like you said, the rot. Inside
the corruption,
the immediate church that he works for, as well as the energy company that is sponsoring that church. This is why he thinks that he can, it would be worth him sacrificing himself, or at least ending his life in that fashion.
Martyring himself.
Exactly. Because he is asked how he feels about martyrs.
Yes.
By Michael.
And Ethan Hawke said, well, I think the film's very poignant. It's got very good special effects. It's actually 3 movies in one. And the ending of the movie is very provocative. What does lie on the other end of life and death? You just let me get away with that. You didn't even interject.
What are you saying?
You said Michael asks him what's his opinion of martyrs. And I immediately went into the movie.
Oh, I did not catch that's what you were doing. I'm sorry.
It's all good.
Jesus.
You can cut that out.
I took it as an excuse to have a drink, and I didn't realize you were trying to be sneaky there.
I was being sneaky.
Jesus
I'm the
Christ.
sneakiest. Don't let me talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. He asks him about how does he feel about martyrs and whether or not climate activists are martyrs whenever they die, protesting and trying to save the rainforest and shit.
Right.
Man, what a fucking movie, dude.
It's a powerful movie.
It is a powerful movie. Now, I want to. Do you have any more bullet points, or can we get into? All right. So I need to ask you, man, what the fuck is wrong with Paul Schrader? He was 64 when this movie came out. So like,
Yes.
So what is his fucking problem, man?
This is going to come out, I think, right after our Taxi Driver episode.
Yes.
So we can reference that. He wrote Taxi Driver as a young man.
Clearly.
But he wrote this late in life.
Written and directed by.
Like 40 years later.
Yes.
And he did it while in a bout of despair about the environment, about climate change.
He's an environmentalist too. He is like
much like how he was essentially living like Travis Bickle while he wrote Taxi Driver.
Yeah.
He was essentially in Michael's place,
Yeah,
the man who shoots himself in this film.
When did I say what was Paul Schrader going through when he wrote this? And you're like, it's pretty fucking apparent, man.
Yeah, I was you'll know by the end of the movie. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah, and then when he started talking to Michael, it's like, oh, okay, so Paul Schrader must have had like anxieties over climate change. How old is he right now? And I just Googled, he's 70.
He's in his 70s.
He's 73. So and this movie was like 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. So I did the math, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's nuts.
But he wrote it from the perspective of a man in his 30s.
Right. Yeah. And so, like, I get that, but it's fucking nuts that how's it? You kind of pointed out to me halfway through the movie that this is the opposite spectrum of Taxi Driver, where Taxi Driver is a person who's probably right wing, gets radicalized, in order to clean the scum of the earth, people he finds undesirable or degenerates or whatever. And this is the opposite spectrum. This is like a person who cares about the environment, which is seen as a left-wing type of
he's
priority.
A compassionate man who wants to see the best in people in the world,
right?
But is ultimately too troubled by his own, tragedies in his life and things that he sees unfolding in front of him, and decides how best to act on it.
Right.
Not in a fashion unlike how Travis Bickle decided that he was going to kill that politician.
Exactly. He's trying
really
to kill
to just impress a girl, though.
I mean, I don't think he's trying to do this to impress a girl, because he's not going to survive.
Right. Travis Bickle, I'm saying, was doing
that. Yeah. Whereas this, like, it is the horseshoe, man. Like, it's the
absolutely.
And it was funny because watching Taxi Driver, I understood where Travis, came to his conclusions, but I did not agree with it, and I did not like him.
Right.
Whereas with Ethan, I understood his conviction, and I was like, hell yeah, dude, blow yourself up, take these fuckers with you. If Amanda Seyfried's somewhere within the blast radius, I'm sure she'll be fine. You
would have been pot committed.
I was rooting for him, man. I was, and like, I don't know what that says about me. I don't want the FBI to think that I'm an eco-terrorist.
You want me to edit that part?
No, just leave it in. It's funny. I have to.
This will be used against you later in a trial.
I'm not gonna. I have no fucking desire to like do eco-terrorism, but like you have to add some sort of comedy to this, because holy fuck, this movie is depressing as shit.
Gallows humor, if you will.
Yeah.
It is dark, and I think was it a quarter of the way through the film, I was like, Will, if you don't want to talk about this movie for the podcast, I understand. Because I realized I was like, I maybe should have given you some more warning about this.
No, I do like going into these blind, because it's always like more fun. The reactions are more genuine,
right?
I
agree. Yeah. But I did want to set you up with Taxi Driver first.
Yeah. To help me understand. So, what other movies did he do? The Gray, right? No, he didn't. For some reason, I thought he did, and I was like, "Oh man, that movie's so good." Liam Neeson punches a fucking wolf with some glass. And while you look that up, I saw Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and it was pretty good.
Our Guardians 3 corner here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, have you seen a movie recently?
Yeah, of course.
What'd you see?
I watched all of Jury Duty.
That's not a movie; it's a show, and I'm watching that too, and it's great.
Sorry,
hey,
it's a film.
If you've got Amazon Prime, go watch Jury Duty. This shit's funny as fuck. It's pretty fucking good. But hey, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, pretty good movie. I enjoyed it. If you love animals, you're gonna cry. If you like children, you're gonna be, a little bit squirmy in the movie. Not to say like bad stuff happens to kids, but there's just the main villain of this movie is quite sinister. He does a couple of genocides and is a mean dude. He does some genocides. What?
So back to Paul Schrader.
Yeah.
You remember how I was trying to think of the term Stockholm Syndrome?
Yes.
And I mentioned there was a movie about an actress that essentially like got it after being kidnapped by like a terrorist group.
Yeah.
Patty Hearst.
Yeah.
He directed
that. Of course he did. Of course he did.
How wild is that?
Jesus fucking Christ. Okay, so yeah, I haven't seen any of the other ones. I'm trying to understand this guy because it seems like he takes his own personal problems, anxieties, what have you, and puts them in the film.
In these movies in particular.
Yes.
He's
in
done a
Taxi
lot of
Driver
movies.
and in this movie. I
Right.
haven't seen it. Have you seen any of the other ones on that list?
I've seen about 2 of them that we haven't already talked about now.
And
so not a lot.
Can you see Paul in those as well?
I can see Paul in them, but it's not personal films like these are.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Whereas these could be just him stepping in the shoes of another character. Mm-hmm. Those films not so much.
Okay, so this is the Taxi Driver and this movie are kind of like Beau is Afraid for Ari Aster, whereas Midsommar and Hereditary are not. Maybe Hereditary.
Well, yeah, Hereditary, you could argue that.
Yeah,
Yes.
Midsommar, no.
No.
Okay, I was just curious because, I'm 2 for 2 now on Paul Schrader movies, and it's just when I ask you, where was he when he wrote or directed this? You're like, yep, he, thought he was dying of cancer, and turns out he hadn't talked to another human being in 3 weeks, and boom, he made Taxi Driver,
Yeah.
Or he was just up one night being like, fuck, the planet's fucking dying and it's all my fault, and they made a movie about it.
He's like, we're not going to be here in 40 years. What the fuck?
Yeah. Fuck, man. That's a rough one.
Yeah.
So I don't know where to go from here. It's an hour and 3 minutes.
Yeah, it's a downer movie, I know. You have good eyesight.
Yeah, I do have
I could
good
barely
eyesight.
see that from here.
I've got good eyesight. I eat my carrots.
No wonder you fucking paint models in the dark, too.
You know what's really funny is that is starting to kill my eyes. Hey, do you want to talk about how you painted a model?
Sure.
First? Hey, guys. This is Jared and Will's Hobby Corner. Today, we're going to talk about how Jared painted a Dark Angel.
So, Will, for those that don't know that listen to the show, you are a miniatures painter, specifically Warhammer 40K.
Yes.
Have you dabbled outside of Warhammer 40K?
So I have painted, I've actually, so you know how you were talking about Reaper miniatures?
Yes.
I have painted a Reaper Bugbear, which is basically like a Chewbacca monster.
Okay.
I painted that for my brother-in-law, Will, out in Colorado for his birthday.
Oh.
Yeah. And, I don't like painting things that aren't Citadel models, which are the models for Warhammer and Warhammer 40K.
Okay.
Purely because I'm just so used to the aesthetic.
Yeah.
But I have done things outside of it. I've done, there's a website that is called, not Creature Caster, the fuck is it? There's a website where you can basically make your own D&D model. They've got you can make it in a 3D thing and then they 3D print it and send it to you.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, I painted a couple of those too.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So do those, especially the Reapers, is different types of plastic like harder to paint than others?
Yes.
Okay.
So normal plastic, the hard plastic, like that gray shit, that's solid, very easy to paint. It doesn't.
And these are like what the Citadels are, the Warhammer figures.
Yeah,
okay.
They're very easy to paint and they don't have any give. There is a mixture between resin and plastic. It's called fine cast for Warhammer models, but there's other ones that do them too. That's a little bit difficult because the resin gives you a better cast, but it's brittle, so you have to like wash it off, and sometimes it comes in warped. So you have to spend time with a blow dryer and a cold bowl of water to work it back into place. Painting wise, those are really easy. I painted metal, pewter, and those are very nice.
Yeah.
But if you hit it on any kind of solid surface, they do chip.
Right.
So you have to like hit it with a sealer.
Right.
to take care of it. And then there's like cheaper plastics that are harder to paint because they have some give. Case in point, that one Reaper miniature that I painted, the club that this guy had was like wobbly.
It's flimsy.
Yeah, it's fucking, I hate that shit.
So even in some of their product demo photos on their website for the Reaper minis, like there's like a guy with a sword, and the sword is clearly like
bent to
at
hell
an
and back.
angle, and it looks awful. And I was like, damn, you can. Well, there's the reason these are like the cheapest figures that they tell you to practice on.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so we spent Sunday afternoon painting a Space Marine together.
That's right.
Well, you had your own, and I had my own.
Yes, but I was going over the different steps to get the job done.
Yeah, we had a pretty streamlined process that you walked me through where we did it, and I'm happy with the result. Although when I came home and started taking like zoomed in shots on my phone to put it on my Instagram, I was like, I'm actually seeing all the mistakes now. So I didn't end up posting it.
You're your own worst critic. I mean, fuck, even the one that I did, there's mistakes on it, but like at a certain point you have to just get over and be like, hey man, this is the first model I painted in forever. And if you keep at it, you get better.
Yeah, because I did it once back in like 7th grade. Like a bunch of my friends at the time were like getting into Warhammer because of their older brothers.
Yeah.
And like they would bring in the lore books and stuff to school, and I was looking at it going like, whoa. And that shit is like candy for a angsty 12-year-old, let me tell you.
Dude, 40K codexes back when you were in, what, you said 7th grade?
Yeah, so this would have been
when you were
like,
11 and 12?
Yeah, 2002, I think.
Yeah. That was, I remember the code. I still have some books from that time. And man, shit was painted wild. All the stuff looked so fucking cool. And it was like, RTSs were big. People were playing Age of Empires and StarCraft still, and shit. And like having a thing where you could physically pick up your little dude and move him across the table was like next level shit. I love that stuff.
I just remember like glossing over those books and just being like, God, this shit is so cool. And then I finally went to like a comic book store in town and picked up like a starter kit of like 4 or 5 Space Marines.
It's Downtown Comics, right?
Yes, it was.
I fucking missed that place.
Yeah, it was a cool place, man.
So
I got some good shit there before they closed.
Yeah.
But those places were magical when I was a kid too.
I know.
But just Amazon kind of ruined places like that. Like God bless the ones that are still left. You know?
I would say that place was kind of run into the ground.
I don't think seems to be the case in most of them.
Yeah, it wasn't Amazon's fault for that one, unfortunately.
Mismanaged, yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I take my son to the Lakeland store all the time, and he's like blown away every single time we walk in there.
Coliseum.
He says hi to Wolverine and Colossus, and he loves Spider-Man, so he, anytime he sees the Spider-Man stuff, he points it out, and it's great. Comic book stores are awesome.
There was a place in Lakeland a long, long time ago called Dragon's Lair that I really enjoyed.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I think the guy that ran it like used to work with my dad, because I went in there with him one day and he was like, hey, man. And they just like were like, it was a good time, good seeing you. And they like caught up for a while I like stared at like Superman comics and shit.
That's fucking awesome.
Oh, I ended up buying a Alien versus Predator action figure set
hell
there.
Yeah.
From before the movies.
Yeah, this was back in the comics, man.
Yes, it came with a mini comic book.
Yeah. Alien vs. Predator was like headcanon at one point in time, and then like they started making comics about it. Yeah. It was like a what if thing, and then they fucking ruined it with that movie. I still love that movie, but that movie's so bad.
But yeah, it was a great action figure set. I saved up for it and finally got it. And it was so cool. The Predator came with like the removable mask, and he had a staff.
Yeah.
And then the Alien was just your atypical black xenomorph. Man. Good times. But all that is to say, I bought a set of Warhammer figures, some Space Marines specifically, when I was in 7th grade. Painted them all black with like a little bit of silver, and they looked awful, but it was it was cool. And whenever people would come over and see them on my shelf, they go, "Oh, what is this?" I'm like, "Oh, it's part of this like miniature game, tabletop thing called Warhammer 40K," and blah 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 blah. I barely knew anything about it even then.
Yeah.
Though, but so yeah, we had a good afternoon painting those, and I don't know, I think I'll post the pictures.
Do it.
It was my first model.
Do it. I haven't posted mine either, just because I'm actually fucking terrible at taking pictures of miniatures.
Well, and you specifically, like, this is your livelihood, so
yeah, I know.
Maybe don't post one that you painted for fun unless you're really happy with it.
No, it actually looks really good. Like,
okay, good.
I did send it to my group chat, and they were like, "Oh, the glowing effect on the eyes came out really well." And I was like, "Oh, nice. Thanks, man. I followed a guide." But yeah, I'm really bad at taking pictures of fucking models. I'm just not a photographer when it comes to small stuff.
I can't believe that's the part that bothers you.
Yeah,
we should team this. You know,
We
I'll
could.
buy a expensive ass Nikon digital camera.
Don't do that. I've got a light box and everything, but even then, whenever I've got it in the light box, it still comes out pretty bad. I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Oh yeah. Do you just use your phone or do you have?
Yeah, I use my phone, but like I've got a fucking iPhone 13 with like a nice camera.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah, I got this to take pictures of my models, and I still suck.
We'll talk after the pod.
Okay, sounds good.
I might be able to walk you through it because
All right.
Courtney's always telling me I take really nice photos.
Oh, right on, man.
But I feel like, well, I probably have the better camera than her now because my phone's newer than hers, I think. But
anyways,
yeah, I had a great time. It was actually really relaxing and nice, and it was just a good afternoon.
Good, I'm glad.
And the alcohol may have helped a little bit too.
Yeah, we had not to shill out for fucking Bunratty mead, but if you can find yourself some fucking Bunratty mead, that shit tastes so good, and it will get you wasted immediately.
I'm not someone that drinks. You know, I don't typically enjoy the taste of alcohol, but
Me
that
either.
stuff tastes good. Yeah, I was shocked at how good it was.
I'm glad you had a good time.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I think everybody should have some sort of hobby where they work with their hands. It doesn't have to be like model making. It could be Legos or wood carving.
I miss playing with Legos.
Yeah, I bought the BD1
Oh,
Lego set for Haley.
Yeah,
for Mother's
I saw
Day
this. Yeah,
I just beat Jedi Survivor, and she's
yes.
playing through it, and we really like BD. He's a good droid.
Yeah. You know, sometimes you just got to step back and not just play video games to wind down, but you know, I hate to call it productive because you know you don't always need to be productive. That's society poisoning your brain.
Yes.
But just do something for yourself that's fun.
That's right. Don't be like the guy from this movie and have nothing in your room and, you know,
nothing but candlelight and a journal
and stomach cancer to fucking get you by. Like, do stuff with your hands. And also, go see your doctor.
Yeah, please get your annual checkups done. You know, I need you to take a multivitamin, you know. It's the one thing my doctor always is like, he's either telling me to take a multivitamin or making sure I'm taking a multivitamin. He's like, you're taking Citrum, right? And if that's the most important advice he's got to give me, then I'm doing okay, I guess.
The only thing that I've learned from watching these Paul Schrader movies is how not to live. Go talk to somebody. Go see a doctor.
It's just an ulcer. Stop thinking you're dying and take care of yourself.
Yeah, do some shit to add some value to your life, man. Because all you have is this one. And you need to make sure that you make it worth living. Yeah.
You have anything else you want to go out on?
Hey guys, I love y'all. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate everybody who listens to this this silly little movie podcast. It's always fun to have some people, you know, talk to me in Facebook comments about whatever it is we're talking about, or reach out to me and tell me that you enjoy the episodes. It's cool because we don't do this for monetary things. We do it so that we can hang out.
No,
watch
we're
a
actually
fucking
spending
movie.
money. We're not making money.
But it's really nice to have people reach out to me and be like, hey man, I really enjoyed the episode, or I want to talk about whatever movie we talked about. So thank you so much for listening.
So the last few weeks, I've actually had a couple of people, you know, 2 or 3 people reach out to me, you know, that I haven't talked to in a minute, just to be like, hey man, I'm listening to the podcast. It's really good, you know, and you know, like somebody that we both know was telling me that, like, you know, you need to level up your pin game. I'm going to tell you about some good pins. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, he actually listened.
I called him a fucking dork. I called both of you guys a fucking nerds over that. It's fucking stupid. And then he tried to, he sent me something that I think it was like Star Wars inspired. It was like a Stormtrooper pen, like fine point shit. He's like, look at this. Look at the beauty.
He's trying to get you in.
Look at the masterful craftsmanship on this. You don't write on paper, you make art to it. And I was like, dude, this is the fucking lamest thing I think I've ever seen you write to anybody ever. It's so fucking stupid.
Well, he was teasing me that he's like, I'm going to get you into fountain pens. You know, you got to move on from these like store-bought pens.
It was
you know?
It was a fountain pen.
Oh, of
that
course
he sent
it
to
was.
me too. Like, fuck that, dude. No, I already spend enough money on fucking Warhammer. I'm not spending any money on goddamn pens.
But yeah, it's been nice hearing from people. You know,
has.
even family members that, like, you know, I don't see all the time. Are like, hey, we listened to your podcast. It was really entertaining. I was like, oh, thanks. That's kind of terrifying to think that like my cousins and like aunts and uncles listen to this.
Here, don't message Jared with that. He doesn't need. Send him to me. I will welcome the praise. I
don't need
the
the anxiety. Send it to Will. But yeah, So we're like right in the middle of, I guess, like a Paul Schrader miniseries that we're doing impromptu here.
The next one's probably going to be. Do you think it's going to be Card Counter because the following one comes out the next?
Yeah, we'll
week?
do Master Gardener right after that.
Yeah,
and I think that'll conclude our Paul Schrader, moment. But then for June,
we're looking to do Florida.
Yeah,
movies?
let's do. You had a great idea a while ago to do a Florida month.
Hell yeah.
I think we're going to explore that in June.
Fuck yeah.
So we're going to do movies that are all set in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's say our criteria is like 90% of the movie needs to take place in Florida. I don't think that's going to be hard to hit, though.
No,
we
it's
have
not.
Some great ones lined up. I don't want to spoil any
Yeah,
yet.
2 of them 100% are in Florida.
Right.
The entire time.
All the ones I was thinking of, I think, are all in Florida.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
But we'll tease those as we get closer to June
good.
there. I'm looking forward to that.
Me too.
Yeah, that was a really good idea.
Thank you, man. And then you can cut this part out, and then we're going to have Financial Crash Month right after June because we have this debt ceiling thing that's going to be happening.
Isn't that in June too?
Yes, that's in June. So after we do the Florida thing, we should end on Florida Project.
Yeah.
And be like, now we have Financial Crash, like shit that...
Oh, specifically like the 2008 financial crisis.
Because we're going to do The Big Short. We got Arizona. You've got 2 more.
99 Houses.
99 Houses. And then...
or Homes, yeah.
And then possibly Hell or High Water or maybe a different one. But I've seen Hell or High Water.
Oh, does that tie into the financial crisis?
Yes, it does.
Oh, I need any excuse to rewatch that.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Movie.
Yeah, we'll do that one.
I didn't remember that it did. Is that
'cause
why they're doing what
they
they're doing?
their house was bought out because they had nothing. They could not do anything but sell it because they could no longer afford it.
Oh, do we find this out like at the end?
You find out right.
I don't want to spoil the movie. Sorry.
No. You don't have to. You can cut all this stuff out, but you find out like halfway through because I want to say Brad Pitt has the money and is going to the bank to get his property back, and they're not helping him.
Brad, you mean Chris Pine?
Is it Chris Pine? Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, Chris Pine and Ben. His brother is Ben.
Yeah. I don't know his name, but he's great.
Ben
at
Foster.
It. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, it is Chris Pine. Oh, my bad. I thought it was Brad Pitt. But yeah, he goes to go buy the property back again.
Yeah.
And they're like, we can't help you.
Yeah.
And so then they do the last heist, and Ben Foster helps his brother get away. Yeah. Fucking great ass movie.
So good.
But yeah, Florida month, financial crisis month, and then I've got nothing after that.
It's okay. We don't need to plan out that far ahead.
Yeah.
Like I said, this is a hobby. We are not making money off of this.
That's true.
Well, I greatly enjoy the time that we spend doing this together. It's been very, I don't want to say cathartic, but it's been good.
It's fun.
It's good to spend time with you, and it's an excuse to watch movies and talk about
Absolutely.
them.
Everybody should be so lucky.
Yeah, right. But spend time with your friends and family. Maybe don't watch a Paul Schrader movie, though. That's not for everybody.
No, because both of you guys are going to end up blowing yourself up in a church. Or shooting a senator, which is not a good idea. Don't do that. Don't go to jail. Don't throw your life away. It does get better.
Well, folks, thank you for listening. You can find our show on social media by searching for @DebaserPod. I'm Jared Rusk, and you can find me on Twitter @JaredSRusk or on Instagram @solid_slack. Will, where can people find you, and would you like to plug anything?
Pocket_infinity, and that's it.
Sounds
nothing
good.
else. Oh, damn, I should have plugged like a local church or something. Just to be
no,
silly.
we're okay.
Yeah, I'm just messing around.
Well, good night, everybody. Thank you for listening.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Debaser is hosted by Will Taylor and Jared Rusk. The podcast is edited and produced by Jared Rusk. Want to email the show? Send it to podcast@debaserpod.com. Want to help us out? Please leave us a review on your podcast platform of choice, especially Apple Podcasts, and tell a friend or two to listen to Debaser. Thank you for listening, and take care out there.
Safe and secure from all alarms.